Hi, and welcome to the Polite Society Podcast Hangout. Before we get started, I would like to thank ABN Surplus, Concealment Solutions, Crusader Weaponry, NJ2AS, and Firearms Safety Institute. Rachel, John, and I are on the show tonight. We have a few interviews, but I was kind of hoping Gary would join us. Guess he's busy. Gary Doherty, or Gary Harpster. Okay, guys, how are we doing?
Oh, the we need to also mention that
Yeah, oh, Gary's not
we're
here.
not
He
on,
can't.
or know that we're not on YouTube, I think, is
Yes.
what Paul said.
No, I think we are on YouTube. We're not on the Polite Society podcast live page.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Um, John, would you go to YouTube and see if we have any listeners and look for their comments?
I will.
We have to.
No comments yet.
Ready?
Okay, her name is Marianne Shao. Is that how to pronounce it? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Cool, I'm ready.
Ready?
Ready to roll? Okay. I think I'm bringing us in.
Let me check one thing before we do that.
Sure, yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, I think I start, so let's do it. Coming in at 5. Welcome to the Polite Society podcast, recorded live on Wednesday, July 2nd, 2014. I'm Rachel Malone.
I'm John Richardson, and we have an interview with Jim Irvine of Buckeye Firearms talking about training school staff to protect our children.
I'm Rob Morrison. We have an interview with Molly Pitcher of Caddy, Austin. She's talking about the upcoming Gunpowder and Lace Ladies Open Carry Walk.
And we have our usual weekly news and stories of defensive gun use, as well as Marianne Shao talking about gun games for our Ticks and Tricks segment. So climb aboard.
Strap in.
And hang on.
Episode 249 of the Polite Society podcast starts right now. I totally messed up tips and tricks.
Well, good. Me too. Now,
I didn't even realize it until after I said it.
The things you do to make me look better.
Yeah, it's
I
kind of
try.
like I use this book in one of my classes. It's called The Tools and Techniques.
Oh my goodness.
Fools and what?
Tools and Techniques of Employee Benefits and Retirement Planning. Yeah, right.
Shall we jump? How much do we have for personal news and notes?
I have nothing.
I've got a little
Okay.
bit.
Okay. Well, then let me go ahead and ask about my SIRT pistol and some of the things I wondered about it. Let me expand.
Yeah. Cool.
New training
Let's
techniques.
talk about it.
Okay, 5 seconds. Hi, and welcome back. This is our personal news segment, and I'm going to jump right in. But I don't have much news. I was doing dry practice and using my new SIRT pistol, But it really got me thinking what Gary said in our last episode. He said he tries to never do dry practice standing still. That really moved me. And I emailed a bunch of firearms instructors that I know and said, guys, how long do you wait to teach movement to your defensive pistol students? Well, as you can imagine, I got a whole range of answers. Some of them said, oh no, safety is most important. Everybody needs to stand in a line and stand still until they've mastered firearm safety. And others said, you know, I may not even give them a live weapon until I've got a lot of muzzle awareness on board. So I try and get them moving as quickly as I can, even if I have to effectively disarm them so that they don't carry training scars later when I give them a live weapon and ask them to move. Rachel, the shooting sports are really a bunch of different disciplines. We're almost training students as if they're going back into the Revolutionary War where everybody shot standing still from a line, as opposed to defensive pistol, which is move to stay alive. Then, if you can get to cover, you might shoot stationary from cover. But other than that, you'd almost always be shooting on the move.
Right.
Is that, that's different than what it takes to teach a CCW class, but it's getting at the heart of what we're trying to teach.
Right, exactly. I think most of the range work, or most of the shooting allowed by ranges, really isn't realistic training. You stand at your little booth, or you stand at your, wherever your place is, and you have your target that stays in the same spot, and you pull your gun up, and whenever you decide, you fire shots. And you can do certain things to try to simulate greater speed, but a lot of ranges limit what you can do. I've been really blessed to be able to train at private ranges where I can do whatever I need to do to have realistic training.
Yeah.
And I think that's important for me. When I teach students, I try to teach systematically, and obviously whether or not I'm going to throw in a lot of moving is going to depend largely on whether my student is focused on wanting to learn defensive handgun use, or if they just want to learn some firearm safety, learn some basic marksmanship. That's not going to include the defensive moving style. But I would include it just systematically. I mean, you go through the steps of learning safety, learning how to handle the firearm, learning proper grip, proper stance. I'll have them practice their draw, practice firing a shot, and after that, practice scanning and breathing after a shot. And then we're going to start throwing in moving. And if I didn't feel somebody was being safe, I might throw in some moving drills or if I didn't completely trust them that they were ready to do moving drills with live rounds, I might either give them dummy rounds or just give them a rubber training gun.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I wondered.
Yeah, that's my approach.
I was waiting to ask you. Thank you for being a good sport and giving me an answer on the air.
Sure. But yeah, like you said, there are a lot of different really valid responses, and I'm interested to hear what others said too.
John.
Yes. Work. Actually, one of these days I will get a SIRT pistol. I really do want to get one. I actually interviewed Mike Hughes, who has developed it last year at the NRA annual meeting. Very interesting guy. But I'm still waiting for it to come out in the M&P, the Smith & Wesson M&P.
Right.
I hate to admit, I'm not a Glock fanboy.
You don't have to be.
You don't have to be a Glock fanboy. You don't have to hate to admit it. That's okay.
I mean,
I sit here with my XD on my hip.
Well, there you go.
And I'm not a fanboy either, but it is what I could get, and I decided to go with what I've got.
Yeah,
And I don't blame.
exactly.
And I've just been waiting and waiting and waiting. I actually did handle the prototype of it at this year's NRA annual meeting, and it just fits my hand better. So.
Yeah. Yep. Gary, what have you been up to?
No headset.
Okay, and Rachel?
Well, Monday evening, I gave a presentation along with a local caddy leader for a local Liberty group. It's called TAG, Texans for Accountable Government. It's a great group that's sprung up in the past few years, and they've gotten themselves established. So Justin and I, Justin's from Caddy, we talked about gun legislation in Texas, just briefly why it failed last time, a few positive outcomes from that, specifically a lot more activists, a lot more involved, and people more aware of what's going on. And then we talked about what we need from activists to get things done next spring in the legislative session. I really appreciate the way that TAG functions, the way that they encourage their members to take charge in their area of interest, and then TAG will provide support by facilitating communication to other activists who can help out. So, for example, if I come in and say, hey, my issue is gun rights, and I think y'all ought to hold the government accountable in that, they say, great, that's wonderful, great for the cause of liberty, why don't you tell us what should be done, figure it out, and then give us action alerts, and we'll pass the info along to other volunteers. So they really encourage active participation, and they encourage their members taking charge and being responsible. So I appreciate them letting us come and give a presentation.
Now, are they just in one area, or are they all across Texas?
I believe that I may be wrong in this. I'm pretty sure their only meetings are here in Austin. They're focused. They do a lot of work in the legislature, but they're not limited. I mean, Monday night we had presentations from people running for Austin City Council. We had presentations about, let's see, we didn't have any bonds because that already happened, but about water, transportation, so things that affect the state, but also local things. Really, whoever wants to come in, and give a presentation and be involved.
So it sounds like a nice little small town group in a city of almost 1 million people.
Yeah, and they're very active. They don't just sit there and talk about it, but every single one of their speakers is presenting information about what's happening and how people can join in if they're interested in that issue. But at the same time, they don't pressure their members to be involved in every issue. You know, they can come in and say, okay, these two things interest me, I'm going to jump on board there.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Let people do what they're most interested in. They'll give a lot more effort on the things that they're really interested in, as opposed to the things that are just okay.
Absolutely, and I'm totally going to talk about that in my rant coming up, and I'm already getting revved up with that. Yeah. Couldn't have said it better.
So that we strike while the iron's hot and Rachel's revved up, we'll go to this advertisement from ABN and come right back with news and notes. So did you find a headset, Gary?
I think he said in. Oh wait, did he have one? I think he said in the chat that he forgot his headset, doesn't have it, and he'll be watching tonight.
Oh, okay.
Unless he's wearing one now.
I saw one go on and off, so I'll mute him again.
Okay.
Well, I've got it on, but I don't think you can hear me.
No, I'm hearing you through your like through a laptop or through the keyboard or something else. I do hear you, but it's not through the headset. Oh, okay. You muted yourself, Gary?
I thought I muted myself.
Okay, I'll mute. Okay, I'll leave you muted.
Can you hear me?
I can, but it's not coming through your headset. It's coming through the keyboard or something else in the room.
All right. How do I turn that off and turn the headset on?
In settings.
That little thing that looks like an AR bolt face up on top. Next to the red phone.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. How's that?
Nope. I'm still hearing you through, I would guess, a keyboard
Can you hear
mic.
me?
I can hear you, but it's still coming through a keyboard mic. Gary, I'm going to go ahead and mute you and get on with the news segment, okay? We're going to have a couple segments of that. Okay, 5 seconds. Is that okay?
Yep.
All right.
You ready to rant?
I am ready to rant. Always.
5.
Sorry.
To open the news, we have a rant from Rachel Malone. This one is about the heart of leadership. So let us know what's on your mind, Miss Malone.
Thank you, Rob. I was asked the other day, how many people do you have who would blindly follow you? My response, nobody, I hope. I don't want people to follow me. Now, that might sound strange. I am the leader of a gun rights organization, am I not? Aren't I supposed to be leading the way? Why on earth would I not want people to follow me? Well, I've got 3 reasons. Number 1, I'm not going to do your work for you. The responsibility of running this country and holding elected officials accountable belongs to we the people. Last time I checked, I wasn't a plural entity. I'm one person. I'm responsible for myself. You're another person, and you're responsible for yourself. So get out there and do what you're supposed to do. Even though I am the director of a gun rights organization here in Texas, Texas Firearms Freedom, I want all you Texans out there to know I'm not going to lobby for you. I'm going to lobby for myself. I'll teach you how to lobby. I'll teach you how to be involved, but I won't do your work for you. So get out there and do the job yourselves. But say, what if I wanted to be nice and I was willing to do your work for you? I've still got reason number 2. I'm not always right. As hard as I work to research thoroughly and get my facts straight and present 100% correct information, I'm still very human. I'm going to mess up sometimes. It's happened before. It will certainly happen again. I'll be responsible for my own mistakes. But please, don't try to make me responsible for yours. Also, I may simply hold to a slightly different position than you on some things. So perhaps our beliefs line up perfectly in most things but diverge in 10%. You would be wrong to just blindly follow because you'd be violating your conscience in that 10%. Okay, even if I were always right, and if you knew you would always agree with me, there's reason number 3, and you really can't trump this. Number 3, I want you to think for yourself. If you end up following me, that's great, but it has to be because you took time to consider the issue, to look at the facts, and to come to your own strong conviction that just happened to match up with mine. A large part of what I've done with Texas Firearms Freedom is to take the time to do extensive research on an issue or on a piece of legislation and then give people pertinent information on that bill. I do give them my own conclusions and suggest action items as a convenience for them, but I always try to avoid pressuring people to just fall in line and do what I say. My hope is that I can persuade people with logical arguments and facts so that they take up my position with strong conviction. I don't want passive agreement. I would rather have people believe what they believe with strong conviction, whether they agree or disagree with me. You see, a person fight for a belief with the same strength he believes in. So if you reach your conclusion by examining the facts and thinking for yourself, I think you'll fight for it more strongly. You'll have more reason to do so and more conviction that you're right. And you'll be fighting for what you believe in. And that is what I want. Here's my conclusion. I don't want to have people blindly follow me. I want people to think for themselves and reach their own conclusion and chart their own courses to complete their own missions. I want to help them understand the process of effecting change so they can achieve their goals. Sure, I'll tell them what I think and I'll try to be persuasive, but at the end of the day, I don't want them to agree with me just because I said something and they follow me. If they agree, I want it to be because they believe strongly the same things I do and they've reached those conclusions themselves. Beware of anyone who asks you to blindly follow. Be very wary of any organization that sends you an action item without any explanation. Be extremely cautious and ready to cut ties with anyone who tries to get you to quit thinking and just do what they want you to do. That's not their place. It makes your job a little bit easier right now, but it's a cop-out. So quit copping out. Do your own thinking. I should also note that I consciously operate in the same way. You can't buy my vote or agreement just because you're my friend or you voted with me or you helped me with some project. I won't decide to agree with you as a favor to you or because I owe you one. And I'm not just going to follow you blindly no matter who you are and no matter how much I like you as a person. And I'm not going to refuse to work with you no matter how much I dislike you. No. You have to earn my vote or agreement. You have to persuade me. You have to show me that you're right and convince me of the reasons. Do that, and you earn my support. And I hope, for at least some of you, I will help you to think through issues, and I'll convince you of my position, and I'll earn your support. But please, make me earn it. Don't ever blindly follow me.
Well, thank you. I think that is so appropriate to this podcast. I mean, think of it. What do? We give our listeners self-defense news. We give them examples of DGUs. We ask them to form their own opinion. We give them information so that they can.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Exactly.
glad you're on the show. I think this is right where you belong.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
And Gary just typed in, he said, "Here, here, good job."
And what I'd also like to add is, in contrast, you look at certain other groups who take positions opposite of ours, and they would like the people who follow their group to follow blindly, to go with emotion rather than logic and reason. I'll talk a little bit about this later when you ask about when I talk about a blog post I did, but yeah, I really like your thoughts here.
Well, thank you.
John, you want to jump into the news then?
I do, and lots of times we start off with bad news for gun rights. Let's start off with some good news.
Let's do it.
And thanks to your efforts, my efforts, Rob's efforts, Rachel's efforts, Gary's efforts,
our listeners' efforts,
Governor Chris Christie, Republican of New Jersey, has listened to us. He vetoed the bill A 2006 S993, which would have banned possession of magazines with greater than 10-round capacity. It was interesting what Christie said in his veto message. He said, "The bill was one of those cheaply, and I quote, cheaply recycled answers that never really address the root causes of violence." He goes on to say, "These advocates argue that forcing an unstable, untreated, and likely clinically ill shooter to pause to reload during a rampage will humanely spare lives. This is the very embodiment of reform in name only." The Association of New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Club's executive director, Scott Bach, had this to say. He says, "The governor clearly recognizes the difference between legislation that punishes violent criminals versus legislation that targets the rights of law-abiding citizens." So chalk that up as a win for our side.
And we'll cover it in one of our later news articles. If this New Jersey legislation had been in place in California, the Santa Barbara shooter wouldn't have broken one more law than the dozens he already broke to commit his crime. If it doesn't make a difference, why are we turning honest citizens into criminals?
Exactly.
It was a quiet weekend in the Windy City and the Big Apple. Well, not really. That is if you had earplugs, because there were a lot of gunshots this weekend. 21 people were shot in New York and 42 in Chicago just over this last weekend. Both cities are the very epitome of gun control and big government. Both your big gulp and your magazine capacity are regulated and registered. But the violent crimes just keep on coming. Strange, but the city government hasn't learned that over-regulating the honest people hasn't controlled the behavior of criminals at all.
Rob, do you think maybe their gun-free zone sign is broken and nobody told them?
Could be. Could be. You
Gotta
think
be
they
something.
care?
I don't think they care.
No, they don't.
I think regulation is the goal and not the means.
Yeah, that's a pretty classic description of gun control, isn't it? It's about control, not about safety.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I have some more news from Chicago. Richard Hernandez was supposed to stop gang violence as a paid interrupter in the anti-gang ceasefire program. Well, now Chicago cops have another name for Hernandez. They call him a rapist. Hernandez faces 36 counts of sexual assault and kidnapping of a teenage girl while he worked for the anti-violence program. Hernandez is one of the 9 employees of the ceasefire who faced serious criminal charges in recent years. Their convictions included illegal weapons possession and drug charges. So what do you think? We've got a candidate for Employee of the Year here?
It just
Doesn't
depends
it make
on
him
who you
eligible
ask.
to run for... Pardon, John?
It depends on who you ask, and I think you're right. Eligible to run for alderman in the city of Chicago.
Man,
Oh, I was going to go right for governor.
There you go. I mean, you can't make this stuff up.
He would win.
Yeah, Gary found
That's
his
the
mic.
sad
He would
part.
win.
On my mic.
Man.
Yeah, he would win in Chicago.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for when Governor Pat Quinn goes to jail, because that would, make an unbroken string, it seems. So, well, the rest of Illinois is not like Chicago. And Illinois now has over 60,000 licensed concealed carry holders since they started accepting applications in January. So in 6 months, they've risen to 60,000 licensed concealed carry holders. Firearm sales often slump during the summer as people get busy, but sales of handguns and the request for training and licensing courses has continued to grow in the Prairie State.
I wish Gary Doherty was with us. Sometimes he's on our podcast. Next time we have him on, we have to ask him if his courses have stayed full right through the summer.
Absolutely.
We use Illinois and we use Chicago as perfect. But my question is this, and you guys, Paul and I got into it. I see that as we go forward to try and get, say, more logical gun rights, there are some cities, and I'm not so sure of Rachel's comment, because you can have a poll and 90% not agree on 10. I don't necessarily know that the violence that's within the inner city of Chicago will necessarily be reduced by the legalization of concealed carry. Not that it shouldn't happen for a variety of other reasons, But do you see that it would dramatically reduce the violence that's there now? I think the violence is inherent. The social culture exists within that small portion of the city of Chicago that has violence.
I think it's easy for us to look at a situation and to try to come up with what logically makes sense. And I know that during the past couple of years, as I've looked at statistics, I approached statistics with a completely different mindset, with a mindset biased in a sense towards gun control. And when I looked at the facts of the presence of firearms and how much they decrease crimes, that's what changed my mind. It wasn't just me wanting it to be that way, it was me looking at the actual facts. So I think the facts speak for themselves, but I would say even apart from that, whether or not we had those statistics, to me, and I say this all the time, kind of like beating a dead horse, but hey, I think it's true. It goes back to a fundamental right, and who has the authority to decide, who has the authority to regulate. The reason that I push when I'm giving testimony for gun freedom is not the statistics. The statistics offer comfort to lawmakers as they're making freedom-oriented decisions, but the reason is our fundamental rights, and that's what I always point to.
And I don't disagree with that at all. I just think that oftentimes in the conversation, in many parts of the country, have a tendency to use statistics such as Chicago as a reason, the same in many respects like the situation that Bob saw in California. It's that shooting experience on the left, for lack of say, here's a prime example why shouldn't have guns. And we all know that it doesn't affect it at all. Neither does the size of the clip that you have in New York. None of that stuff is going to affect that. It's just rhetoric from the other side. Sometimes we throw the rhetoric on our side, and I just wonder if sometimes that doesn't kind of bite us in the butt. Lack of a better way to. So I personally, I look at situations like Chicago and East St. Louis and Memphis, necessarily see where just a change in the law, other than the right, would necessarily reduce the violence that you see in those communities. So the violence in those communities aren't in the upper middle class suburbs. Violence in those communities are in really, really bad neighborhoods for a variety. They're bad because of economics. They're bad because of social culture. They're lack of morals or family structure. They're bad for a variety of reasons. Unfortunately, those bad people also got their hands on illegal guns. But I don't think that changing a law in California is going to shooter, or in Connecticut, Colorado's going to stop that shooter. Lack of guns or stronger gun laws is not going to affect those things. Neither do I necessarily think that gun laws that are going to our side are necessarily going to change the violence in some of those more violent inner city spots without something else also taking place that we should also be behind.
You know, Gary, I can see your point, and I would agree with you that it's going to take more than changing gun laws. The point I would make is that having concealed carry, having people in Chicago being even able to possess a firearm in their home still allows the good people living in the bad neighborhoods, the grandmas, the grandpas taking care of their grandchildren because their kids are worthless, for lack of a better word, or on drugs or whatever. It lets them, it may not lower the overall level of violence, but it lets the good people take care of themselves. When the cops are afraid to go into a neighborhood, at least good people can still protect themselves.
That
Yes.
I agree with. That I
Yes,
agree
and
with
then
100%.
and then you go to the name of our show, Armed Society is a Polite Society. So we show that by yes establishing it's the government's jurisdiction to uh, give us freedom, give us our rights, right? Not restrict those, and then it's our responsibility just as private citizens to go and do what we can do in people's lives to make a difference. I think that's should be the means of affecting change in places like that.
I think that sometimes we have a tendency, and I'm not talking about you folks here, listeners. We have the tendency to talk about the right, not necessarily the responsibility. See, to throw statistics out there, but those aren't necessarily any better in our favor. It's just my comment on that particular.
Well, Gary, I have this comment. Granting full and complete recognition of the right of self-defense won't make Chicago a peaceful city. It won't cure the corruption in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Can't do it. It won't create jobs. They've already crushed them. It won't create families. They've already killed them. It won't create a vibrant economy. They've already driven out competitive enterprise. But it might save the person who chose to protect themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it seems like a sin, a great wrong, if a government says, you have to live in this bad neighborhood and we're going to deny you the right to protect yourself. No,
That I agree 100%.
the right of self-defense won't cure all the world's ills. But the reason I am so passionate about it is I'd hate to think that my silence created another unwilling victim. Someone who wanted to defend themselves but couldn't.
That's what we should push.
Let's go to break, and we'll be back in just a moment. Guys, did anybody else hear Gary about every 8th word would cut out, or is that just my connection with him?
No,
Yes.
me too.
Okay, Gary, so if you're downloading 3 other movies, that's why I turned off your video, to hope that the audio would come through completely.
To come through better with the video off?
Usually it does. That's why I have mine off.
Often it does.
That's why mine's off.
I grabbed the old headset that I've got. It's a backup headset. That could be part of it. But
I don't know whether it's the headset or the bandwidth from your connection. If someone in the house is watching 3 other movies, ask them to turn 2 of them off.
I'm the only one in the house, and I've got lots of bandwidth, and there isn't anything else going on my computer. So
what's going
I
on?
wonder if you have like a loose wire or a
He's
short
coming
something.
through fine now.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll post. Let's sort out the news. John, Rachel, John. Gary, do you want to comment or do you want to read?
Comments fine.
Okay. John, Rachel, John. John.
Are we still taking a break after 7?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, you take California.
Yeah, I get to
See what you
poke.
can do to California.
If you have something up this way in the Midwest, I'll take it, but I don't see anything at the moment.
Yeah, I already beat up on Chicago. Rob. Rachel. John, any comments from YouTube?
Let's see, the screen went to sleep. I hadn't had anything yet. Yes. Mr. Fats 123 says, hello to all from the great state of Texas.
Hey, Mr. Fats.
I'll take 11 and 12 here.
Okay.
You already had me down for 12. Oops.
Now, what did you just do?
It looks like I took out a... There we go.
Hey, John, do you remember Sheriff Cook? We met him in Orlando.
I don't.
Okay.
I hadn't read that article on, I guess, my following the news today. I didn't see that. I'm disappointed to see Target.
Well, it's kind of like the Starbucks thing where they've kind of come back and said, well, it's not a ban.
Yeah.
There is no prohibition, but the antis are going to claim it as a PR win.
Oh, wait. Okay, this is where Rachel starts playing the game. Gosh, we got a lot of news.
Yeah, we sure do. And we got that whole
Stop it,
interview
you
too.
guys. Okay, shall we delete the one about women in
Yeah,
self-defense because we never edited it?
Yeah, and yeah, maybe move it or use it some other time.
Okay, so I'll just in caps next time.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Have anybody watching on YouTube?
That's a
Yeah,
good
one
question.
Mr. Pats.
I don't know how you check that.
And we have 2 watching.
Well, hello to our listeners. Thanks for watching.
Oh, maybe I'm the second one. Oops.
Well, hello to you too. Glad you're here.
Oh.
How many? God, does this ever end? Okay.
No, almost.
Uh,
So are we doing Molly's interview like as its own segment, or?
you know what? Okay, we got to 8. We're going to go to 6. Let's take another break. Or we broke at 6. Where do we break? Help.
Like
5.
5, I think. We kind of talked for a while about some stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So let's do another break after 10 or 11. 11 is short. Oh no, they're both in Texas. I don't want to split up John.
Okay.
Okay, we'll do it. We'll
Wait,
do it
we
before.
included the rant in with those 5, right?
I'll check.
Yeah, it's the rant plus 5, so we should be able to do more than 5.
But this way I'm kind of splitting us into 3 groups of 5.
Okay, actually that works great. That's fine.
Okay, so I'll bring us back in. 5
All right.
seconds. Hi, and welcome back. As part of the American Civil Liberty Union's recent report on police militarization, the Massachusetts chapter of the organization sent out open records requests to SWAT teams across the state. They received a very interesting answer. Small police departments in Massachusetts pool their resources and share SWAT teams. That makes sense. The teams are operated by law enforcement councils, or LECs. These LECs are funded by several police agencies in a given geographic area and overseen by an executive board. The boards are usually made up of police chiefs from member police departments. The LECs also facilitate technology and information sharing for smaller police departments. They also share other specialized units such as crime scene investigation and computer crime specialists. Well, here comes the interesting part. In response to the American Civil Liberty Union's letters, the SWAT teams said they don't have to respond to the Freedom of Information Act requests because they are not a state agency. Well, wait a minute. On one hand, they claim their corporate status exempts them from open record laws. On the other hand, they claim that the team and all of its members have the privilege of using deadly force on behalf of the state, and their evidence is admissible as coming from a law enforcement officer. I'm sorry, but I think someone has something to hide that the ACLU would have exposed, and they need way better legal advice. Any comments?
That's what I would agree with. That looks like a challenge in court if I ever saw one. The first time they try to hold something back in a
Yeah.
I'd be
court of
interested
law?
to see. Yeah, I'd be interested to see where a challenge would go, and what kind of pressure a judge would be under.
Oh, wouldn't that be interesting? It
would be very
Oh.
interesting. Yeah.
It's a Massachusetts judge who would basically bury the law and let them get away with that. Wow.
I mean, I hate to just speculate and accuse them on that, but I would be very interested to see where something would go.
Yeah.
Mm.
I'd expect that out of Illinois. Should I expect it out of Massachusetts?
You could
Yeah,
very
okay.
well.
Once upon a
Depends
time,
on if I.
where people stood up for liberty.
Yeah.
Good comment. I bet you've said that before.
I don't think I have.
It sounded like something out of an Appleseed to me.
Yeah, it probably came from having told the story. Oh, that's what I did last week, and I forgot about that. And then in the personal update section, yeah, I taught a sold-out Appleseed shoot last Saturday. So I told the whole story. It's kind of fresh on my mind.
Well, the California legislature once upon a time believed in freedom and rights for citizens. But now they've passed Assembly Bill 1964 in the Senate to Governor Jerry Brown. The bill would eliminate the single-shot exemption to the California handgun roster. Only guns originally made as single shots would be exempted. A firearm that was converted would now have to be on the roster or be outlawed for sale. The Firearms Policy Coalition and Cal Guns have a page up urging Governor Brown to veto the bill, and we do have links in our show notes. They are also asking people to make their voice heard on Senate Bill 53, which would ban online sales of ammo in California, among other things. And we have a link up there as well. Rob, got a question for you.
I'm way over here on the left coast. Would our listeners please give California some love and call our governor? It worked in New Jersey. Maybe we'll change the governor's mind. John, you had a question.
I was going to ask, in California, if you buy a single-shot off-roster handgun, can you then convert it back to a regular handgun down the road?
Yes. That's how some people twist themselves in knots to get, a modern handgun. A Gen 4 Glock in California? Nope, it's not on the roster. They have to go through that craziness to get it.
Or they could just steal it from a cop.
Not
But
our
that would be
listeners.
There's always
illegal.
that.
There was a listener to some other podcast does that, not ours.
Thugs
Right.
are us.
Thugs.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't. I
Yeah.
haven't. Go on. I think I drive past their store on my way to. No, never mind.
You turn the other direction, right?
Yes, I do.
Very good. Well, may I have your attention? Will the last manufacturer to leave the blue states please turn out the lights? PTR left Connecticut and gave a commemorative rifle to the governor of its new home in South Carolina. Remington moved some of its production lines from New York to Alabama. Sturm Ruger and Company Incorporated is building a 220,000 square foot building in North Carolina. And Colt, which is also headquartered in Connecticut, moved its shop to Texas. Yay, Texas, at the end of 2013. Beretta abandoned Maryland and moved to Tennessee shortly after Maryland lawmakers banned assault weapon sales. The reasons are simple. These companies moved because of laws, costs, and people. They found more of what they wanted in other states, and that's the free market for you.
It is. And actually, I'm going to be near the PTR factory in a couple of weeks, and
Yeah.
I'm actually working. It's right outside of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and I'm working on seeing whether or not I can get a visit to the factory. And maybe
Nice.
you could get an interview with someone of the officers about why they chose Horry County. So that should be interesting.
Huh.
Keep your fingers crossed.
Yeah, well, definitely report back to us and let us know what you find out.
I will.
Well, think of it. This is a long-term trend.
Mhm.
I mean, California used to pump oil. We were right behind Texas. Now we're nowhere to be seen in the rankings of oil-producing states. We used to build cars and airplanes in California. Heck, not only do they not build them in California, they don't even build cars in Detroit any longer.
Or at least very few.
Yeah. Industry will move where it's welcome.
And we in North Carolina welcome Sturm Ruger with open arms.
I imagine so.
Well, if you felt a bump in the night, it was a wave of freedom felt on July 1st as several states recognized more rights of self-defense. In the state of Georgia, the quote-unquote Guns Everywhere bill went into effect with 12 new pro-defense provisions in state law. Even Purple, Virginia had 7 new pro-hunting provisions take effect. Mississippi had 3 new bills become law that limit local preemption, exempts disabled veterans from paying hunting license fees, and created a tax holiday for hunting and fishing equipment. A Tennessee bill would allow a gun owner to carry his firearm in his car without a permit, while a second Tennessee bill makes it illegal to harass hunters and fishermen with drones. As of July 1st, bearing in mind that the Second Amendment talks about arms and knives are arms, switchblades are now legal in the state of Tennessee along with blades longer than 4 inches. Even Blue State, Maryland has now allowed Sunday hunting, expanded hunting season, and instituted special classes to teach hunters to cull the overpopulation of deer in some Maryland counties.
You know, we forget. The anti-gun bills sometimes grab the headlines.
Mm-hmm.
Bloomberg's Moms Demand Action comes out with a press release, and it might be carried in the press. We forget that there's 1,000 victories that will go silent unless people listen to the Polite Society podcast.
That's right. Another reason to listen.
Yep.
I was surprised when I read this stories about what was. I did not realize that.
Gary, I can't hear you.
Hear me now?
I can hear you now.
I don't know what changed, but drones. I didn't realize that there was harassment going on for hunters. It's like, who spends the money on a drone to harass a guy fishing? It's like insane.
PETA, I guess.
PETA, the Humane Society of the U.S., which really doesn't run animal shelters. Drones are not. I mean, you could go to your local hobby store and buy one now for $500 or less. I mean, it's not a Predator drone, but it still would be.
But it's a
It could hurt if they ram it into you.
This
Is
true.
there any state where it's legal to shoot the darn things out of the air if they're bothering you?
Well, probably not.
Colorado, there was a local proposal by a city to allow hunting of drones.
That would make sense. Now that would be fun to hunt. That would be a lot of fun.
You take up hunting. I'd take up hunting.
Just to do that.
Oh yeah.
I might even try a 12 gauge or 10 gauge. 10 gauge is what I meant
Yeah.
to say.
There you go.
While the rest of the United States might occasionally enjoy the increased smell of freedom, that smell hasn't reached Los Angeles. There, the stupid, I'm afraid, is still strong.
I'm
The
sorry,
LA
Rob.
City Council, I'm not in LA, but I can see it from here.
Yeah.
LA City Council proposed a 10-round magazine capacity ban. That would make possessing large capacity magazines a misdemeanor. It would eliminate any grandfathered exemption and demand standard capacity magazines be surrendered in 60 days. There are, of course, exemptions for law enforcement. Well, and they finally included museum collections this time. I want to remind you that none of these new laws would have stopped the latest killer in Santa Barbara.
Either they really love 1911s in Los Angeles, or they think that criminals will obey this one law while they ignore 23,000 other gun laws.
The stupid is everywhere in Los Angeles. John, I think it is politicians practicing anti-gun bigotry and dialing for campaign contributions.
I think you're right.
Yeah, Rob, I think you're right on that.
Has
Well,
there ever
sorry
been,
for-
Rob, a pro-gun recently in California? Are there
Gary, I didn't hear you. The middle of your question dropped out.
any pro Bill of Rights Amendment guys, Second Amendment guys that have run out there?
Many of them have. The Republicans ran and funded a Wall Street candidate for governor. He won in the primary. There are many conservative, meaning people that want to conserve liberty. There are many conservative politicians in California. California is basically politically dominated by the Los Angeles Basin and the Bay Area. When you get off the coast and get out of those two areas, it's a very conservative state.
Interesting how different areas can be quite different politically.
Said the girl from Austin, Texas.
Yes, exactly. Well, last episode we reported on the federal district judge who denied the appeal of Colorado sheriffs to rescind the new Colorado gun restrictions.
Now, is this the same judge who took data from before the background check law went into effect and then used the data to show that not everybody used background checks?
You got it, Rob. That's the judge. Well, as it turns out, these sheriffs have decided to appeal her ruling. The Weld County Sheriff, John Cook, said, "These laws are unconstitutional and unenforceable due to the way they are written."
One of the things Sheriff Cook said was, a guy's got two magazines. How am I supposed to tell which one he illegally got yesterday and which one was grandfathered in? Sheriff Cook is running, I think, for legislative office in Colorado. I forget whether it's Senate or Assembly. And John and I met him at a gun rights policy conference. I remember the sheriff.
You know, I heard another comment about these laws in Colorado.
Yeah?
Basically, outside Denver and or Boulder County, they're not enforced.
I would
Either
believe
law.
that. I'd believe that.
And it's just something to trap people. If they want to get you on something, they've got something to get you on. So, and with that, we will go to a break, and we will return after break.
Gary, the middle of your question disappeared again.
It's just the headset's not that good. Plus, there's a way for me to adjust the volume on this side.
I've got you cranked all the way up, Gary.
It's like we'll hear some of it, and then it drops out like every few seconds, and we'll miss several words.
Do you drop your head or turn your head at all when you're talking?
No, just sitting here.
Okay.
That was just an off-the-wall suggestion.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, it's coming to the end anyway, so I'll mute myself off, and I'll just make sure that I've got the new better headset next week.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Sure.
John, Rachel, Rob, later. Rachel, John, oh, come and take it. So Rachel, you'll just introduce the come and take it interview?
Yes.
Okay, let's put the gun quote, the Kathy Jackson gun quotes, and then you'll introduce the come and take it interview, and I'll mention that we have, who do we have? Holy cow, I got to get this straightened out. Okay, you guys argue about the gun quote, and I'll find out who we have.
Argue. Who wants it? John, you want
I'll
it?
take it. Oh, yeah.
Go for it.
And I'll take the Kathy Jackson.
Cool.
Oh, Jim Irvine, that's right. I'm sorry. So we need to tee up that. Oh, okay.
Wait, how are we doing this?
So you tee up your interview and say after the interview we have this interview and the interview with Jim Irvine of Buckeye Firearms.
Okay. I can do that.
That is because you are a professional.
After the gun quotes, right?
Yeah, because we're essentially, we have two interviews.
Yes. Okay. So it's going to be gun quotes and then an ad and then the Molly Pitcher and Jim Irvine. Yes?
Right.
Okay.
So there's a break after the gun quote?
No,
well, Rachel will say
we're gonna go to the two interviews, and Rachel's gonna tee them both up.
Okay.
So there's not a...
She's gonna explain what's gonna come next.
Gotcha.
Gosh, wake up and smell the sausage being made.
Smells good, huh?
No, yeah, right.
It's like that great quote from Apocalypse
Everything but
Now.
the squeal. What's that?
Smells like victory.
Oh, and what is that from, John?
Apocalypse Now. The smell of napalm in the morning. Smells like victory.
Like victory to me. Okay.
Cool. Man, I'm still cracking up. I totally forgot I taught an Appleseed last Saturday. That's how crazy my life is.
It's been that kind of week, huh?
I guess I've... Okay.
Rachel, when you move, this is this third time I saw that. When your cursor moved, your voice dropped out.
Oh, seriously? That's weird. Okay, I'll try not to move that then.
So,
Okay,
is
John.
everybody ready? And I'll bring us back from break
Yep,
Yep.
let's do it.
in 5. Hi, and welcome back to the Polite Society podcast news segment. The Bloomberg-funded group Moms Demand Action was asked to leave a Target department store in San Antonio, Texas. I think it was this past Saturday. The group demanded that Target refuse service to licensed concealed carry holders. The daughter of one of the protesters, unfortunately, had been murdered in a gun-free zone. So now they want to turn all Target stores into a gun-free zone.
Because that just makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Wait. Oh, San Antonio. Okay, that makes sense. I could see this happening in Dallas. I could see Austin opening their arms and, offering them cookies and coffee. But San Antonio, huh? They decided to join the rest of Texas. Okay.
Well, unfortunately, and this was just today, Target has now issued what I call a Starbucks type of statement regarding the carry of firearms in their store. They say, and I quote, "But starting today, we will also respectfully request that guests not bring firearms to Target, even in communities where it is permitted by law." Close quote. I take this to mean that while they will not post their stores, they want their stores to be unofficially gun-free zones. Well, Everyday Moms for Illegal Mayors is claiming victory. A spokeswoman for Target clarified later this afternoon that, "Oh, it's not a ban," she said. "There is no prohibition." They're backtracking. Nonetheless, I hate to say it, it's still a PR win for the antis, and they're going to portray it as that.
Yeah, well, I love Texas. Y'all know that, but I'll admit there's stupid even here in Texas sometimes, more than I wish. I will point out that in Texas, a gunbuster sign has really no effect under law.
Right.
So you can post no guns all you want, and it means absolutely nothing for the CHL carrier. It doesn't add to the law.
From what I understand, Target is not going to
Correct.
put even the legitimate 30-06 signs up.
Right.
Just saying, yeah, come on, guys, don't do it.
Right.
And so
It's the don't ask, don't tell policy.
Yeah. Just like Starbucks, just like Chipotle, just like keep on going. So,
Rachel, I know you like Texas, and I won't ask you to explain this one. Dallas County now has an agreement with a private gun range so that the range will accept firearms taken from people charged with domestic abuse or if they're the subject of a protective order. Now, this is Dallas County. Jan Langbein, CEO of Genesis Women's Shelter, had this to say. She said, "Imagine how much better victims would sleep at night knowing that all the guns have been removed." Really, Jan? I say, imagine how helpless the victims will feel if their abuser makes a phone call and has the victim disarmed by the cops.
my lawyer can beat up your lawyer.
I bet he can. I think that's exactly the point.
Hey, are you guys picking on Texas?
Well, yeah, I am. Because I don't want politicians to posture and deny innocent victims their rights. I know restraining orders are fairly common now in the war of divorce cases, but I've never found an example of someone charged for making false claims of domestic abuse. The liars are simply never prosecuted.
I thought it was my job to pick on Texas. I live here. I can pick on it. Having a Californian pick on Texas, man.
Means you have very broad shoulders. Thank you.
There you go. Okay, we'll just have to take that. Well, as we all know, there really just isn't a workable definition of an assault rifle, yet Many anti-gun politicians use exactly that term, assault rifle, to ban modern sporting rifles. Well, Ares Defense has come up with an AR-15 configuration that's really going to frustrate the gun grabbers. It doesn't have a flash suppressor or a bayonet lug. It has a conventional stock, but it uses stock AR uppers. It operates like an AR. It eats ammo like an AR. It shoots like an AR, but it looks just like any other semi-automatic hunting rifle.
It
Yeah.
takes AR mags, and it looks like a few pounds of freedom coming to an overregulated gun banning jurisdiction near you. You don't
And
have
it
to worry
looks
about
pretty
that
cool.
stuff. And
Hmm?
I probably won't sell in Texas, but I'm thinking New York, Maryland,
Yeah.
California.
You know, it might sell better than you think, because I picked up one at the NRA annual meeting, and that is really light, 5.5 pounds. It is
Yeah.
a, it was a
Sweet.
nice, sweet little carbine.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. It looks cool enough that even if I could get something else, hey, I would totally be willing to try one of these out. So I'll volunteer if they need a Texan to test it.
There you go. Well, let's go to a story about more cops doing it right. The Paragould, Arkansas Police Department trained citizens to carry concealed. They had a one-day class covering the laws surrounding handguns and how to properly handle, fire, and care for them. Students went to the range with instructors for a live fire practice session. One instructor said, "The class is important because it teaches students how to avoid becoming a victim." Quote, "Not just teaching them the specifics about carry and conceal, where you can carry, where you can't carry, but giving them information that they can use in their daily lives. Be aware of your surroundings and reduce the chances of having to use that concealed handgun to defend themselves or a loved one." They will have classes each month until October, and this is the department's 19th year teaching the class.
You know, John, the more I look around, uh, I read about some other departments doing things like this. Good for them.
And what
Absolutely.
what was that Anthony Calandro said last week about if you want to do something for liberty, you don't know where to start, take somebody to the range, teach them to shoot. Well, good for this department for doing exactly that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and if you know, but let's amplify that. Suppose you're a passionate self-defense advocate, but you don't know how to take a particular person to the range. If there were classes like this that you knew about, maybe you could help them sign up.
There you go. And that's great.
Or even if there was a charge, pay the charge.
Ah,
Mhm.
That would be a
good.
donation for the Second Amendment in its own
Absolutely.
way.
Facilitate it, make it possible. I like it.
Absolutely.
There's always something you can do. I mean, if you want to make a difference, you may not be able to do what Mr. Smith over here did or Mr. whoever over here did, but there's something that you can do.
John, I think you have the last, next to the last news item.
I do. Come Saturday night, Kathy Jackson will be joining us.
So save up all my training questions for Kathy.
Try to stump
Absolutely.
her.
It'll be a 3-hour show. All right. Well, Rachel will take us out, but I want to give us the gun quote before we do. This is a royal quote. A gun is no more dangerous than a cricket bat in the hands of a madman. That was from Prince Philip.
Very nice, Rob. Well, coming right up, we have an interview with Molly Pitcher of Caddy Austin regarding an upcoming special event, as well as an interview with Jim Irvine of Buckeye Firearms. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
No, just saw that. Rachel, do you want to take the first DGU since there's only 3 and I have the last one in the first and the third?
Well, wait. The last one's in Texas, and you're going to do it?
Yeah.
You can have it. That
All right.
works.
All right.
Go
Yeah,
for
because
it.
I want to talk about Nyocomus.
Okay.
Well, that makes sense. Okay. Rachel, you going to bring us back?
Mm-hmm. You all ready?
Mm-hmm.
Let's do it. Coming back in 5.
Oh,
yeah.
no.
Yeah, what you got?
Bring us back, but then I want to comment about Jim.
Gotcha.
Jim Irvine. And you
Yes.
comment about Caddy that you're looking forward to the walk. Okay?
Yeah, I will do that and throw it to you.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Coming back in 5. Welcome back to the Polite Society podcast. I hope you enjoyed those interviews. I'm definitely looking forward to the Gunpowder and Lace walk with the ladies of Caddy Austin, and I appreciate Molly Pitcher coming on the show, taking time to explain that to us.
You know, I've seen some of the promotion pictures you that are up on Facebook,
Yes.
and for a minute I go, what is this? Something that Sass was putting on?
Yeah.
It looked to be a little bit more than jeans and a rifle sling.
Oh yeah. They throw up some cool pictures on the Gunpowder and Lace Facebook page, so all the ladies should go check that out. Guys too, if you want.
Also, I was amazed by what Jim Irvine said. In a year, they've gone from 200 armed staff in Ohio schools. Now they've trained up over 300. That's a tremendous growth, and good for them for making that kind of change. That's going to save lives.
Mm-hmm. Well, sure appreciate the people who come onto the show and give their insight and wisdom and expertise. Moving along, we have our defensive gun use section. We've got a few DGUs for you tonight. I have the first one. It's from Pennsylvania, and the moral of the story is, well, if you don't have a gun, it sure is good to have friends with guns. Christopher Vasquez and an associate robbed a 60-year-old man in front of the victim's house, taking his valuables and keys. The victim recognized them and called police. Because his keys were taken, the victim stayed outside to protect his car. Sounds like he had pretty good foresight because, a little while later, the thieves came back to take the car, and they began beating the victim when he said that he'd reported the earlier crime to police. Moments later, a neighbor yelled for the two men to stop beating the victim, The neighbor then fired one shot, striking Vasquez in the chest. The criminal died at the hospital. The shooter was taken into custody and released without charges.
That sounds like a good Samaritan, doesn't it?
Sure does.
does.
I couldn't help but wonder what range he fired at. It kind of sounds like he wasn't right there in the situation. It was one shot.
Yeah. And I hate to say it, there was a new podcast out that I just listened to that discussed a situation like this, and it's from Andrew Branca, who wrote The Law of Self-Defense. And he talked about how you
Is
have
he
to
the
be.
gun lawyer? Is he the gun law lawyer?
He is. He's got a podcast out now.
All right.
And in situations like this, you have to know your state law, and you have to be pretty darn careful. That's pretty much what he said.
On the other hand,
when you're coming to the aid of another person.
yeah, that John, you're talking about my head, and I'm thinking if I looked out my window and I saw my 60-year-old neighbor being beaten by two thugs,
Right.
would I be willing
Right.
to sit there and call the cops, or would I wade in to try and save this old man's life?
And I think that's a different situation than what Andrew was talking about, where you came upon a situation where you have two burly guys trying to drag off a woman. How do you know that they're not, as he said, DEA agents picking up?
Yeah.
Exactly. I think the farther
Ooh.
removed you are and the less you know about the people involved in it or the less you saw of it, the more careful you would have to be.
Yeah. Now, in
Good
this
point,
case,
because I was.
it was a neighbor, and that makes a lot of difference.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, know your neighbors and know who doesn't belong there.
Well, someone didn't belong. Police were called to the Stepin Style in Dayton, Ohio, just before noon. Two armed and masked men entered the store and demanded cash. The store had been robbed before, I think within a year. Only this time, the store owner was armed. He shot one of the armed robbers, and his accomplice fled. It's a sad story. There is no happy ending. Police later identified the dead criminal as 16-year-old Isaiah Haggins. He lived with his grandmother, and the family was surprised by the armed criminal behavior of their grandson. Very few criminals start their career with armed robbery. They start with stealing property. They might do drugs. Then they graduate to burglary. And finally, they graduate to muggings and armed robbery. Maybe this young man was different. Maybe. But for most criminals, committing armed robbery is their graduation, not their first crime. In this case, it was this young man's last.
Yep. Well, moving along, the manager of La Bodega Mexican restaurant was happy that an off-duty Midland, Texas police detective was eating in his restaurant this past Friday night. That is because Niocomus Garnett, 35, had entered the restaurant through his back door, intent on committing armed robbery. After Garnett fired several shots in the kitchen, he exited into the restaurant, where he was met by the off-duty detective, who told him to drop his handgun. Garnett refused and then tried to shoot the detective. The detective was faster. The detective shot and killed Garnett. Most importantly, no patrons or restaurant staff were injured in the robbery attempt. Police say that Garnett had an quote-unquote extensive history with Midland law enforcement. We have links to each of our news and defensive gun use articles at politesocietypodcast.com if you want to share them with a friend.
We're going to go to our tips and tricks segment with Anne-Marie Shao with Marianne Shao on gun games. We'll be right back.
Did I cut you off, Rob?
Yeah, it's okay. I return the favor. No,
Do we
my
want to re-record that last part?
Sure, let's do it right. You do it all.
Okay, I'll just do the La Bodega and
Or
then
no,
you.
let me finish. Let me put in the comment about law enforcement, and then let me jump in with this comment about law enforcement, and then you take the tips and tricks or
We have links.
the link. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
5. John, I remember the restaurant robbery that I had right near where I live, and I'm imagining a detective. I don't think he was standing out in the open, but when you look around a restaurant, the restaurant owner near me shot right through his refrigerator. There's not a lot of cover in a restaurant. There may be concealment. So that means, yeah, you've got to stop a guy and hope if he shoots at you, the bullet gets stopped before it reaches you. Man, that's a brave man.
Absolutely. Well, we have links to each of our news and defensive gun use articles at politesocietypodcast.com, and we would encourage you to share them with a friend. Coming up, we have the Tips and Tricks segment with Marianne Shao on gun games. Okay. So the new professional stuff is we just have to record what we have here.
Yep. They'll
Okay.
splice it in. I don't have anything, so
I don't have any. I just
don't you have
checked that.
anything? Oh,
Nope. No emails for me. Oh, you mean do I have something to say? Yes, I do.
yeah. So Rachel goes, John,
Yeah.
do you have any new posts from your? How about I? Now that'd be cute. Your words, my link.
Yeah. John, you could just hack into Rob's blog and somebody's phone's ringing.
Okay.
But that was a house phone,
Wow.
not a cell phone. So
Rachel,
Okay.
John.
I can tell the 4th of July is coming. Just heard fireworks in the background.
Okay. We're ready. Yay. Oh,
Okey-doke.
hey, Rachel.
Yeah.
Rachel, Marianne Shao had. Well, let me bring us back, and I'll describe what Marianne said.
Okay.
I think I will. I think I will. I think I will. Pooh, I forgot. Okay, back in 5. Hi, and welcome back. I was amazed. You know, I am not a teacher by temperament. Now, Rachel may be, but hearing Marianne talk about it, she wants to. I mean, she's teaching young kids, elementary school kids, and she's going, what games can I play with them that will safely keep them engaged with firearms and maybe teach them something in the meantime? You know, Rachel, if you get a chance to listen to that, maybe it's something you drag along to Liberty Seeds.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. I think she's a very energetic person who thinks creatively on the subject. Got some cool ideas. For sure. Well, moving on, we have our listener email discussion. Got an email I'd like to read from listener Chris Gillespie. Chris writes, I was at a local store purchasing a monthly gun magazine. I reached the checkout counter, and the clerk asked if I concealed carry. I was thrown off guard by this question. I said, let's hope we never have to find out if I do. How would you guys have answered that question? I can take the first stab at it. I actually often have the opposite issue, which I'm completely fine with, where I'll be talking with somebody and talk about the importance of always carrying, carry 24/7 or guess right, and how I believe in carrying, and they still walk away with the impression that I'm not carrying. Maybe I just don't look like it. So I'm actually pretty cool with that. If I do get pressed, everybody who knows me knows I'm a horrible liar. If I try to, for fun, pretend something or be deceitful, I usually feel bad and confess it about 3 seconds later. So I usually come up with something like, well, do I look like I am? Or do you seriously think I am? Or, and they'll be like, haha, no. And we move on. Usually people assume I have one in my purse. I'm like, no, I don't have a gun in here. So that kind of solves the problem for me. But what about you guys? How do you answer that question?
I mean, one answer you could say, what? Am I printing? I'm not sure how I would answer it, because a lot of places that I go I can't carry, so I'm not as religious about carrying as I should be.
Mm-hmm.
A frank admission there.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes I don't mind telling people if I'm carrying,
Right.
but sometimes I'd rather not, especially if it's in a more public setting and there are people there I don't know. It's not always smart to go around yelling, "I have a gun." So something else I've said a couple of times is, "Do I need one?"
Well, that's a good one. And it's like, some people say, well, that's why it's called concealed.
Right,
Yeah.
or I'll say pass open carry, then you might know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I heard is somebody said, if someone asks about a gun, whether it's concealed or open, however we're ambassadors. You go,
Yeah.
well, would you like to go to the range? Are you comfortable around firearms? Because if they're asking, they probably, the reason you and I are uncomfortable is this seems a personal question. Well, on the other hand, if it's a request for information about firearms, we can talk about that all day long. Hey, when are you off? When do you want to come to the range? I'm going here. My friends are going there. How could you meet us? That sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that, Rob. That's a great response. Try to figure out where they're going with it and just meet them right there.
The Polite Society download app is out on Amazon for Android, and the iPhone app is in iTunes. It's called Podcast Box. They're both located by our old name, Politics and Guns. Hot links are in our show notes.
Also, please check out Kathy Jackson's Corner Cat training classes. Her next class that still has seats available is the weekend of July 12th and 13th in Walla Walla, Washington. Go to cornercat.com for more classes and details.
John, do you have any new posts from your blog that you'd like to mention? Your blog, No Lawyers, Only Guns and Money?
Yeah, actually I do, and it goes back to a story we discussed earlier. I did a post on Monday, and it was kind of about the Target store in San Antonio
Mhm.
The whole story that ushered in the gun control, that showed the gun control protesters off their property. Their organizer made a comment to the press that stuck with me. She said they were quote unquote, and she was complaining about being sent away, but we were only armed with children and clipboards. Well, the UN and all responsible and moral people have condemned the use of children as soldiers. While qualitatively different than the warlords in the Congo and elsewhere, it is still using innocent children as tools and props in a war against gun rights. And I really just object to that. I saw a picture today of the moms outside a store in Pennsylvania somewhere. 4 moms, 4 kids, and one on the way. The oldest kid may have been all of 8. They may or may not have even. Mom just said we had to go and hold this sign. It's using kids as props, and I just object to it.
John, I hadn't seen that event in that light. Thank you so much for pointing that out to me.
Well, I think it was what hit me was the comment that they were armed with children and clipboards. Armed with children? And it's like they were using the kids as a weapon.
Yes.
Yeah. On the surface, it almost sounds funny, but when you think about it, yeah, I think you have a very good point there.
Great. You've weaponized innocent children.
Right.
Exactly.
Using them as props and as tools. I will bring my kid out to open carry walks, but that's because he wants to. He begs to, and he's studied. He's studied the issue. He knows what he believes, and he's standing up for what he believes, not just getting dragged along to something. So.
Very good.
I'd like to remind our listeners to please check out The Shooters Club by Bob Main and Ben Branham. For $75 a year or $6.25 a month, you get 24/7 access to some fantastic training and audio podcasts that you can't get anywhere else.
Well, that wraps up another episode of the Polite Society podcast. Until the weekend show.
Stay safe.
Be aware.
And we'll see you down the road. We'd like to mention ABN Army Surplus, Concealment Solutions, Crusader Weaponry, New Jersey Second Amendment Society, and the Firearms Safety Institute. We want to thank them for being advertisers on the Polite Society podcast.
John, anything else from Mr. Fats?
No.
Okay, then I'm going to take us off the broadcast.